Okay, here's another one from Real History, www.com. It's the racist website that likes to try to tell everybody that all Caucasians are brand new to the world. They've only been here for a few hundred years and popped up like popcorn, and black people ran everything. And oh no, wait, I'm sorry. This is the idiot. He's on the other side of dumb. He says that Caucasians are just albino Negroes, and that the pale Negroes stole from the non-pale Negroes that didn't do nothing. And but he still tries to say that the non-pale Negroes were everywhere, and then all of a sudden, like popcorn, the albino Negroes popped up, and that's who the Caucasians are, and that Caucasian doesn't exist, but everybody in the world is some form of Negro. Yeah, that's this guy. And here we are in Anatolia 2, and this is the one I was sent. What happened here was on one of my old videos, somebody got on there, and I don't know, it got hung up in the spam filter, and I never go back to these old videos, but it got hung up in the spam filter, and it's him ranting about 25 times all of a sudden out of nowhere, and I'm like, what? And this is from a couple of months ago, actually, and that he got on there, although the video's over a year and a half, 2 years old. Anyhow, he got on there and started this rant thing, like they do, where they put one sentence and then one sentence and then one sentence and one sentence and one sentence and make just this big long tirade of crap. Right. Well, he did that, but he also did it on every single thread in the whole video. And then anything anybody said in any thread, he did a rant on that too. So it's like 23 of them. But just the hilarious thing is that two of the things he tried to point out, oh yeah, what about this, was exactly the videos that I just put out here the last few days. So it was real easy for me to just go click pop, click pop. But I don't usually go back to a lot of these old ones. I mean, it's kind of old and busted, and it's hard enough for me to keep up with. And as you can tell, I try to respond to a lot of people. And so if I respond to all of the videos and the old ones, and especially things like Mandela effect videos and things like that, it just yeah, I can't reply to it, and I can't tell all the Mandela effect people that yeah, this was whenever he said that he didn't have any part in it, but he had already done it, and yeah, it's a fake, but here he is lying about it, and you don't want to say that over and over and over again whenever it says it right there at the top pinned, and it says it in the header of the whole thing, but they don't pay attention. They go, oh, and they freak out. That's okay. It's, people want to go with the spacey thing or whatever off of it, but I was just showing there that here he is lying about it. Anyhow, here we're going to see him try to claim all the ancient people of Anatolia, and most people don't even know about the Hattushan people, or the Hatti, or whichever we want to refer to them as. And uh, was it Robert Zephyr made a video not too long ago that contained this and tells you that it's one of the major people of mankind people have forgot because they were kind of pinched in between for some reason. Everybody talks about Egypt, now they talk about Mesopotamia, now they talk about Greeks and everything, but who was out there in that Asia Minor Peninsula? Who was that? Well, Hattusha ran a large part of it for a lot of times, but it was never really a solid thing, just like a lot of Sumeria and even Egypt was off and on quite a bit, broken into city-states somewhat, and not so much of a unity thing. And then there's Colchians and Mitanni and all these people that are in there, the ancient Phrygians and things like that. But let's just get into this. For what you can see easily off here is a very early Isis form, with Isis holding Horus, same kind of effigy. But also what we can realize here is this is Mary. Yeah, this is Mary and Jesus, and you see the same picture done there in the Isis, Horus, everything. It all just fits all together. And then, oh, what's another connection to Samaria? Oh, well, then Harsog and Dumuzi and the whole 9 hours. Yeah, so it all goes together. And right in the edge of the video, you can see here that whenever this is happening, there are cattle. But this is only 200 BC. Cattle go back way back, and we'll talk about that as he flip-flops a little through this. I think he wants to claim the fact that this statue here, which is clearly Caucasian, alkaline nose, no prognasticism whatsoever, because it has somewhat of a butt on it, that's all of a sudden a Negro. Yeah, Kim Kardashian would disagree with you probably, and a lot of others, but this isn't even really drawn as that fat Venus style anymore either, is it? This has gotten closer to modern times, and you quit being that big, huge mama thing that I've shown you goes all through Proto-Indo-Europeans from the farthest Europe all the way across, and all these ancient people. And it shows you connection that leads to things, that leads to things, that leads to things, and none of it contained Negroids whatsoever, like the Bible or Egypt or anything along that line. But watch how he tries to claim this. Here we go. As we have seen from page 1, the original early civilizations of Anatolia were built by the Khoisan African. So now he wants to take the low IQ Khoisan people that are still primitives. Those are the type of guys that are in the gods must think we're crazy, drop a Coke bottle thing, click language and all that stuff. He wants to claim that they, of course not the West Africans, because everybody knows that, and there's no phenotype of anything like that. So the closest phenotype, and I recently showed a video where they have a large contingent of Caucasian interjection into their DNA way back when. Of course, that video went crazy to 40,000 views. Sadly, if you get on that video, though, you'll find that who's yelling all the time? Well, instant yelling, calling Whitey Cracker, Neanderthal, K-Vape, Yap Yap, are West African people who just want to lie about everything. They, during that, try to say all of North Africa was Caucasians. Of course, the Egyptians were Caucasians. You'll see them claim everything in it. It's pretty disgusting, and the whole time they're hopping up and down and yipping and stuff. It's kind of hilarious, but also quite disgusting, and getting their people nowhere. In fact, making their own racism by their own hands, and then getting mad about a lie. And then when they get debunked, they get real mad. So it's just this disgusting envelope of idiocy. But let's continue. So he says that they were made by the Khoisan and Grimaldi. Evidence of Grimaldi's continued presence is demonstrated by the pronounced buttocks of the Hattic mother above. That would be odd, because Hattushan people are extremely pale Caucasians and have nothing to do with Negroids. In fact, it's believed that they never even saw a Negroid in their lifetime, for Negroids weren't allowed into or through Egypt by decree, and there was a bounty on their heads, really their right hand, which was worth more than any slave was, and nobody wanted them. They gave them the name Nahasu. It, to this day in Coptic, means worthless. And so they really weren't part of Egypt in any way, shape, or form. Sure, some slaves and things later, and they actually tried to domesticate them and get their crap going up there, but it's that's another story altogether. For now, we're way up here in Anatolia, and he's trying to claim that. He tells you, though, this marks the end of the period when a clear differentiation can be made between the Khoisan African and other African Caucasians, apparently, who have migrated northward, because there are no Negroids ever seen made north until much later. He says through the Levant, and of course this is part of the idiots that want to try to get Negroids anywhere in history except for West African primitives. The following millennia will see an almost constant movement of people in and out of the area. Yeah, Caucasians and no Negroids, and never any sign of any Negroid. Caucasian lands, yeah, definitely. You can imagine that everything during the last ice age was kind of shoved down a little bit, and as they came in and out of that. So if we start talking about ancient archaeology, you're going to see that pulse going up and down and in and out. Yeah, and so much more cold adapted people there versus the warm adapted people that only ever lived right around the equator. But let's continue. So now what we're looking at, it looks like to me, is one of those Egyptian wall effigies, and earlier too, in its response here, it's got to be Middle Kingdom or before, somewhere around in there. And what we're seeing is what I remember is Syriatic dress. So these are what they just called Asiatics, but yeah, this is more the Syriatic people. And you can tell by the way the dress and the clinch is put into it and everything, and then compound bow things and everything. Something to note here, one's a redhead, one's a blonde, not even dark-haired at all, no prognostic jaw whatsoever, and also, here's the odd proof, and it keeps slapping black people in the face, but males from Syria drawn exactly the same color as the Egyptians, and their females drawn as pale, exactly like the Egyptians. Oh, also the Mitanni, the Greek, the Minoans, Etruscans, and everybody around this area. It's a Caucasian edict. Of course, they draw with red ochre and only about 5 colors, 6 colors, but let's continue. Oh, one more thing about this too. If you'll look, they're exactly the same. He's got dotted shirt. He's got one with wavy lines around the edge of it. Yet, when we look at it real closely, his hand and his hand are in the exact same position. Everything is exactly the same. On him, they changed it to a water vessel versus the bow and arrow. And in him, you can almost tell that there was drawn a bow and arrow. I can see the line in the tip of the bow in here, and it comes through his hand and up. Can you see that? But they've changed the art, and nobody changed it modern. It was done in older times where perhaps maybe the scribe came in and goes, he's carrying a piece of cloth. He's carrying a ream of cloth. So he looks like he's carrying a ream of cloth, and he's carrying a bow, but if you look, their hands are exactly the same positions. Again, blonde-haired Caucasian, red-haired Caucasian, quite tan, exactly the color of the Egyptians. No prognostic jaw and no negroid form whatsoever. And that's how he starts. That's how he starts. Syrians bringing vessels and weapons. Tomb of Rekhmire. Oh, I even did a video about all this. So that's hilarious. 18th Dynasty, reign of Tutmosis III, early Amenhotep II. Facsimile by Nina de Garros Davies. Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. So now we're going to look. Oh, wow. So these have to be the Egyptians, right? I mean, look how dark that is compared to even the guys we were just looking at. These are the Egyptians. Well, if you look, this is real hair. It doesn't even look like even wisps on top. This is blonde hair on real tan people. Yeah, those Beach Boys, they get tan as hell. And wearing the sandals and stuff. Aegean Islanders, Tomb of Rekhmire again. Oh, yeah, I did a video about this. Just said it. Here we are with those same exact color as the Egyptians. How does that work? Yeah, you know, in some of their art, they show them as being pale or doing this or doing that. Whenever they get real pissed off of them, they tell them you're not part of the red ochre group, and so you're all pale. Other ideas on that are that a lot of those people they're showing, of course, are nobility, and nobility aren't working like these guys out. They aren't getting as tan, and therefore they're stayed pale. Same thing as they show the Egyptian women and the priests for that staying holy and staying fair. Something black people couldn't pull off even if they tried. Well, nowadays they can bleach themselves, wear fake contacts, and Caucasian mimicking hair hats, but that's a totally different entity, isn't it? The Hatti are probably the original advanced civilization of Anatolia, and so he mentions this out. Watch that Robert Sepper video, it'll show it. Maybe I'll do a separate one on it. Sometimes I feel like if I follow Robert Sepper on something that he shows, people are going to be like, well, you just stole it right from him. You know, some of his stuff, he just shows video chunks. Some I show video chunks on. A lot of my video chunks get marked, and so instead I just yap. Right? Okay. So he probably gets marked on his, although that picture-in-a-picture and a fake TV he does. Anyhow, Hatti are probably the original advanced civilization of Anatolia. In his video, he talks about these four major groups of people they had talked about, and we only ever talk about three: Egypt, Mesopotamia, Greek. But in reality, who was right in between all of that crap in the triangle of the A, if you will, in Anatolia, named after a knot, would be these people. And they're called Hattusians, Hatti, whatever. It's funny, he'll actually say they exist and they're black, and then he tries to discredit them and say they don't exist and stuff. It's just watch this. Anyhow, and they claim the Bible too, and this and a few other things. Let's go. The Hatti are probably the original advanced civilization of Anatolia. They ruled a kingdom in central Anatolia that was made up of several small city-states. Like I said, yeah, their language is extinct now, and little is known of it, but it could possibly have been Sumerian, since there are signs of Mesopotamian influence on Hatti art and culture. Yeah, and we see that also too with the I'm sorry, guys, with the Assyrians and things along that nature. Frito chili pie tonight, so yeah, isn't that good stuff? Okay, so anyhow, could have been Sumerian influence here, and there's been a lot of people who've done dissertations on this that make that connection. Same thing I've done with Egypt and a few other places, and you can see they have a Lamassu and all these things and a cherubim, and you can tell when the Canaanites in the Bible had going on, that's what the hell they're talking about. Yeah, okay, but got taken away from that area later, and then they go, oh, never happened. Anyhow, guys, the main cities of Hatti were Mahatlar, Horosdepe, Alakhoyuk, and Hattus. And so we have Alakhoyuk right near other Hoyuks, like, Cattle Hoyuk for one. Everybody knows that name. And Horosdepe. What is that? That's that's Horus's mountain. That's the mountain of the horoscope. The hell is just? Oh yeah, okay. So it's One time there was a belly button of the world or Omphalos situation there too, just like there was Greek Delphi and a few other places. None of this contains anything to do with Negroids, and they didn't know it existed, though. Let's continue. Their religion was nature and animalistics, as their gods depict various aspects of nature in the form of animals. And that's no different than Egypt. In fact, Egypt is much more animalistic. But if we look, everybody in this area, as we've talked about in animism here lately, and how it works up with zodiacs and things, but also they're sacred animals because, like cows, bulls, Taurus, and all this type of stuff goes with food, and everything is a big circle of life, and as above, so below, and everything works together. It's an amazing thing. Look at this amazing Caucasian here wearing his cool Cappadocian type hat, which just looks a little bit different. But if we look at this is exactly the same depiction as a Persian is of the Aryans and other people, and it also looks extremely Sumerian and Akkadian. It all has that hookup together, but whenever you get up into this area, just a slight variation on a theme. Not that there's any different race of people in any way, shape, or form going on, but he wants you to believe it. He tells you this is the relief from the ruins of Apadana, the Persian capital of Persepolis, about 500 BC. Oh, so that is a Persian relief. This relief provides a good example of how whites twist facts and just plain lie their telling of history. Huh, really? So who is it that's not saying anything about West African primitives and trying to claim anything but? Oh, how pathetic. Let's continue. The encyclopedia Wikipedia has this quote: Herodotus tells us from the name of the Cappadocians was applied to them by the Persians, while they were termed by the Greeks as Syrians or White Syrians or Leucosyrii. Okay, so boy, they were pale as hell people. So why would you try to even claim them as a Negro? But oh, as you just can tell you, that's a lie. This term Leucosyria was coined by Strabo, a Greek writer who lived from about 64 BC to 24 AD, almost 500 years after the period under discussion. The purpose of the quote can only be to suggest that the ancient Anatolians were white people, as the relief above and the other artifacts clearly show they were not. Continue that next panel. That's a Caucasian with a non-prognathic jaw. He's not a Negroid. Natural Negroids without admix don't grow much facial hair at all, if any. And it's kind of pathetic when they keep trying to claim these bearded people. Oh, blacks can grow beards now. Yeah, they got 20-something% admix from Caucasians, too. If we look at the Khoisan that he's trying to say these people are, they don't grow much facial hair. Find me some with a bunch of beards going around. Oh, they get this little crap on their chin. I had that crap on my chin when I was 11. Let's continue. St. Gregory of Palmas. Oh, my God. And hopefully it shows up well there how much that they Afro-shopped this picture. How dark that is. For this background should be a little lighter than that in tan. I will show that to you in a second. They actually found the darkest Negro shopped one too to even go with. Very disgusting. Born in 1296. Why would you go from this time that you're talking about and then try to throw this in? That's because Negroids have this weird flippity mind and they just want to throw it in there. It has no continuity, but here we go. He's just going to try to get you to believe all these things. Black people go for it wholeheartedly. They don't want to be associated with West Africans, and they'd like to be part of the Bible. And of course, neither one of those things are true. Now, they can of course adopt the Bible, but if they blaspheme it and start saying it's theirs and things, you know what's going to happen out of that. The Bible clearly denotes what's going to happen out of that. Born 1926, Constantinople, Istanbul. Yeah, okay, so Caucasians definitely here. Died November 14, 1359. Yeah, they had that calendar all the way down. Fantastic back then, these people that made that calendar. Thessaloniki, venerated in Eastern Orthodoxy, Eastern Catholic churches, canonized in 1368. Constantinople by Patriarch Paethios of Constantinople. It goes, however, by Strabo's time, there may well have been white Cappadocians, so he's going to try to throw the, oh, well, maybe. With Alexander's defeat of the Persians, millions of whites poured into the former Persian territories. Persians were the ones that called themselves Aryan. Darius himself calls himself that on the Behistun inscription. It will not be overlooked in saying, oh, well, that Aryan thing, that meant Negroids, West African primitives. That's what, no. How sad and pathetic could this guy get? But here we are fixing to see some reality here off of it. But blacks remained an important part of the Anatolian population well into the current era. No, there's not been a Negroid found up into there until the Roman times. And that was still kind of sparse. And in fact, all of Europe seemed to think that they were pretty much a sideshow act up until, 1600s, 1700s? Sideshow acts. Yeah, oh, look at that. Ooh, look at this. Never seen that. Wow. Wow, they're primitives. What do they do? Yeah, it's kind of disgusting for him to try to claim this crap now. So let's look at this man. I want you to look plainly at it. I want you to notice the way the real picture looks, or his picture that he tries to show. Note that you can tell that this is red hair. Red hair. It's just been darkened like hell through his Negro shop. And you see the crosses here and the way this looks, right? So you're going to see some redone renditions off of it where they try to trace it and redo it. And those aren't actual real. There's only a couple of these that are real in a few books, and they actually look almost exactly the same. Let's look at that. St. Gregory of Palmas. Okay, St. Gregory of Palmas. Hopefully this is big enough pictures for you to see, but as we look here at this group of St. Gregory of Palmas, what we're noticing is that they're all Caucasians, and then what we notice is the darkest one out of all of them is this one. You can see the crosses on that, but do you see how these are like a brand new rendition? Yeah, that's a brand new rendition, and this is the old one. See how that's not been redone? So somebody's tried to snap up the colors here and freshen it up nicey, but that's the exact same thing. In fact, you can look at the script, it's faded a little, and there it's thick and it's dark. It's not just a Photoshop technique, it's actually been somewhat repainted, right? But if we zoom in on the old one here, I don't think anybody on this planet would try to call that a Negroid. Now here's an amazing thing with this guy with the reddish brown hair, is that in another depiction later, it does show it to be somewhat reddish brown but graying. And then if we look over here, it's kind of reddish brown, and damn, that's like Caucasian. And then we look over here, and yeah, that's a long-faced Caucasian. As we look, that's all the same person. That longer face, and he almost looks like Jesus Christ, right? I mean, you can find ones that really do. And when he gets real old, yeah, he looks like that, yeah. Okay, so, you know, oh no, what is this? Oh yeah, this is that one where they photoshopped it again. This is the one we showed that he was the original, and now they photoshopped it. Oh, so what is that? Oh, Jewish looking man. So, oh, red hair, reddish brown hair. Yeah, regardless of anything, guys. Oh wait, Negro shot version of that same one right up there. And you can see it's just been darkened. But yeah, these are all Caucasians, all Caucasians, all Caucasians. Here he is. Here's Mary. Yeah, here's Saint this. Here's Saint that. Here's Saint Philip. Yeah, there we go. Here's Caucasian Jesus. Yeah, they're all over the place. Yeah. His younger depiction makes him almost look like Jesus, though. It's amazing. So why would he try to claim that? Well, blacks want to claim the Bible, Egypt, anything except for West African primitive people. And that's who they were, and it'll never be looked at as anything different. In fact, this current attempt shows them to be the most pathetic people on the planet who want to live lies and want to covet, bear false witness, and make themselves into idiots by their own hand openly. And they just want to hate on anybody who will not agree with the fact that I'm going to lie and steal your history. And that's not going to happen, at least on my watch. So let's continue. By the 6th century BC, Hatti was a province of the Persian Empire called Cappadocia. After bringing the Persian Empire to an end, Alexander the Great tried to rule the area through one of his military commanders, but Ariathasnes, the one, oh wow, it's got Aryans in it? A Persian aristocrat, somehow became the king of Cappadocia. Ariathes the First was a successful ruler and extended borders to the Cappadocian kingdom as far as the Black Sea. Oh wow, all the way up there through the Caucasus Mountains and everything? These Caucasians. The kingdom of Cappadocia lived in peace until the death of Alexander, when the kingdom was taken over by Eumenes, a friend of Alexander's, said to be from the Thracian Cossarians, or modern Gallipoli. And yeah, we know, I just did a one recently too, or a few on Alexander and things, and how that kind of went sour at the end of it all, and how they know now that he may have gotten poisoned, and that was the reason for his untimely death. But it also showed this weird connection with Jesus and stuff a little bit too, and also just an odd connection showing, you know, that perhaps those generals got a little out of hand after him going and fighting for so long. You know, and I in the first two videos I make a connection to that he had perhaps pushed it too far in the way that he took over the entire world. And if you look at what area he took over, he took all of the Aryan lands back over from the Persians all the way into top of India, and the edge of the Sakasuni and the Saxons and the people out of the Bible there too, of the ancient Proto-Indo-Europeans, and stopped, and then came back. So his claims were made good in 322 BC by the Greek regent Peridocus, who crucified Eratosthenes. Yeah. So this actually is written. Yeah, it's there. But Eratosthenes. Oh, so they have direct connect. Yeah. I'm not going to go there in this video. I can make a whole separate one on that moment. But Eumenes was then killed by the son of Eratosthenes, who claimed the kingdom. Later king Eratosthenes V marched with the Roman proconsul Publius Mucianus against Aristonicus, aristocrats, and claimant to the throne of Pergamon. You ever been to the Pergamon Museum? It's badass. But their forces were annihilated in 130 BC, bringing the dynasty to an end. And so if we look at the way these look here, now this is depicting their god Tarhunda here, who is the god of abundance and pretty much your grain god and all those type of things hooked together. So it's the same god of all these people in the same situation and stuff, Baal and all that type of stuff. This is from a depiction from 1200 to about 800 BC, somewhere in that range. I think this one is one of the ones that's only about 900 BC, but there is some of them that even predate that. And you can see him with his hand up to speak, Sumerian gesture, and here it is, the Sumerian bull hat and everything that goes along with it, but more of a pointed Phrygian cap slightly here too. Yeah. Now I've shown a lot of videos that hook this all up together, and you can see him having these pomegranate type corn things, or perhaps pine cones that are around him here. Huh? Yeah, definitely. And then you can see at the bottom of his dress shows a fleur-de-lis pattern. And if we look over here, here's that same guy right here, set to speak, one hand below the wrist and everything. You remember Jack Benny and how he would tell jokes and he'd put one hand under his wrist and use the other to gesture with? Yeah, it actually goes back all the way to this type stuff. The history of another important people, the Phrygians of Phrygia, who inhabited north-central Anatolia, is difficult to pin down as the truth of their king Midas, of Midas gold fame and everything he touches turned to gold. As he is a mythical king of a real person, confusing things further, Midas have been entitled the name of many kings passed down, almost like a Lugal or whatever you want to say. In an event, the Phrygians then, under Roman rule, issued coins with his likeness in the early current era. And so here we see a picture of this non-prognostic, fully bearded Caucasian here with his Phrygian cap on, with a plume coming up out of it, and on the back side the woman showing the scales, right? And then the ankh is in her hand right up here too, showing you that more than one set of people had this type of effigy that went with almost the exact same concept working together. And if you look at that ankh representation, although it's blurry, and compare it to the look of the queen or princess of the gods over in what is Phoenicia and Carthage, you can definitely see the connection between that goddess and the look of the ankh, and we've shown that in a couple other videos here too, connecting all these primordial Caucasians with this same symbology that all comes through, bouncing in and out as we mature, coming through the last and out of the last ice age, spreading up back towards the ice, and then running around, eventually a snake biting its own tail, and that leads into the more modern time that we know of today. That was just the basic on it. Most historians date Phrygia at about 1200 BC, but that is because they referenced it to the collapse of the mythical Caucasian Hittite Empire, and it was a Caucasian Hittite Empire. The problem is there was no Hittite Empire. Oh, so now he denies what he's been trying to show? It was in reality simply the Hatti Empire. Oh, that's the exact same thing, Negro, and don't think because you change one word or one letter that all of a sudden becomes something magically Negro or anything different whatsoever. More on this mythical empire below. Oh, I hope so. So, unknown kings at the Tree of Life. So here we see that same effigy on these people up in Anatolia. Oh, righty-o. Found with the ancient Sumerian depictions and stuff, but they don't have the horns on their hats. They have more of these fez-looking type hats on. And here they are doing the same Tree of Life that's seen through all of these people, and no underconnection. What we're missing here is right up above the Tree of Life, is that winged sun disk effigy that goes all the way through there to Zoroastrianism and on, but also is shown in ancient Egypt and Sumeria. Yep, date back some old cylinder seals, everything. So here's all that amazing Caucasian connection and those blue-eyed Aryans and all that stuff from ancient times. Another part of the Phrygian mystery is the city of Troy, of the Trojan horse fame. The question is, what Troy a Phrygian city? Was Troy a Phrygian city? No, I don't think Troy was a Phrygian city. I think the Phrygians helped Troy during the war, and so I don't know, in some Negro logic that might work, but no, that's not the way it works. Just like if Nubians were ever in Egypt, that doesn't make a Nubian an Egyptian. Just like Negroids in America are African Americans, because we the people wasn't really them in the first place. Right, yeah, and ta-da. So was Troy a Phrygian city? According to Homer's Iliad, the Phrygians sent forces to aid Troy during the Trojan War against Greece. Oh, see, so it, anyhow. But of course, Homer's Iliad is a poem and cannot be taken literally, and his dating a relationship to actual events is highly questionable. Yeah, but it's actually like a bard's tale or whatever you will, and it has so much to it. In fact, he's probably looking at stuff from the 1940s whenever they didn't know that, hey, we found Troy and all these other things, or he wants to omit those and just say it was black people. Somehow there were black people in that horse. Somehow there's got to be black people in your history and not just in sub-Saharan Africa, which doesn't have a history. But in any event, the locations of Phrygia and Troy and the dating of both makes it highly likely that both of these people were ethnically members of the Hatti people. So now he's telling you, no, man, they're all Caucasians. Hey, you want to see something else that connects them together? Way up here in Zinkirli, right up there, you'll see that they're holding a lotus flower, yeah, which really looks fleur-de-lis-ish, if you will, with a lotus flower. He's doing the finger symbol that's sacred in the Bible. They're carrying that little bag with them right there in the tree of life situation. Yeah, and then see this guy in Sumerian dress and everything, and the long beard and the long hair. Yeah, yeah, these amazing Caucasians. Isn't that amazing? Herodotus on the Phrygians. Now the Egyptians, before the reign of their king of Psammetichus, or Psammetek III, so this is after the uh, Kushite dynasty, which lasted a mere 70 years and then got knocked back out. And Psammetek was one of the first ones that did that. So this is after that. Believed themselves to be the most ancient of mankind, since Psammeticus, however, made an attempt to discover who were actually the most primitive race. Oh, yeah. So I made this in a video too, where it talked about it, where the Egyptians, everybody says, oh, the Egyptians are first, and it's like, that's funny. The Egyptians tried to find it out, and they said that it was Greeks and Anatolians that were there before them. And indeed, the first writing and stuff seems to come out of there. Now, are they talking about people coming out of Ugg, or are they trying to say first civilizations and stuff? And they're saying first civilizations. Well, we know now that a lot of these Anatolian people, pre-dynastic, came into Egypt, and there was a float in which appears to happen at least twice from Sumeria. Cylinder seals, Gebel El knife, showing you the Master of Beasts ceremonies and things. If you look at my pre-dynastic Egypt series that I did, it's got it all inside of it, and it shows you all these actual Egyptologists telling you, yeah. Also, there's one guy there that believes in a Negro starting for Egypt, but it disintegrated before even pre-dynastic times. But he gets talked down to directly in the meeting by the man showing the presentation, telling you, hey, if you want to believe one of these was black, you can say this one is, because I'm fixing to tell you they're wiped out totally and assimilated, and they weren't even part of Egypt. But let's continue. So, who is the most primitive race? Well, the most primitive race on the planet right now is Negroids. They have the least advanced, lowest IQ on average, and the least things that they've ever done. In fact, most of anything they can see around them wasn't brought to them by themselves in any way, shape, or form. This is usually about the point where somebody tries to tell me some lie about black inventions, which have already been debunked before, and I just have to interject here. I'm just about sick of people thinking that I haven't seen every single one of their lies before 1,000 times and that it's been debunked. They just want to come on and yap, yap, yap. And it's like, man, everything that would come out your mouth has been debunked. There is not, tell me something new. try to come up with a new lie, because all of these are totally debunked. I'm about to do a video about that. Yeah, and opening picture's kind of funny, but let's continue. So, how did they figure this out? Well, now, before I get into his telling of it here, let me tell you an odd telling here. Ancient man, they say, must have had a similar common language. Why? Well, because ma is mama and ba is dada. And you see that baba with the sun and everything, and it's still extant in languages today and everything, and and baba becomes dada, but in that same idea, and then baba becomes baby or son of. So you're actually still deifying the man, but saying it's son of. But anyhow, that's still extant, so you get that idea. And so they say that the original, now here's the thing, either it all comes from this language, it's all common, this is when I was first going to school, or that people named everything off the way babies make noise. What? Yep, and that was kind of a sarcastic way of saying that yes, it comes from an ancient language, and these people were studying Aryan languages at that time and being berated like hell. And but the people that were saying the exact same thing, calling it Proto-Indo-European languages, got left alone. And so we've left that A word alone now and just said the same exact thing, and it's all free and go as long as you don't mention a swastika that they had going all the way back through the last ice age and is extant over the entire planet and has nothing to do with World War II, but maybe it does slightly. Then again, I digress. So let's see how this primitive race things go. He says they have been of the opinion that while they surpass all other nations, the Phrygians actually surpass them in antiquity. This king, finding it's impossible to make out by the dint of inquiry that men were the most ancient, contrived the following method of discovery. He took 2 children of the common sort and gave them over to a herdsman to bring up at his folds, strictly charging him to let no one utter a word in their presence. So now you're going to deprive these kids like hell just to see what happens? Anyhow, let me continue. But to keep them in a sequestered cottage, and from time to time introduce goats into their apartment, see that they get their fill of milk, and in all other respects look after them. And nobody would put a goat in your house. What the hell are you talking about? So you'd milk a goat out there and give them milk? You're going to feed these babies, right? What the hell are you talking about? Even this whole story is just conspicuous as hell, but let's continue. His object herein was to know, after the indistinct babblings of infancy were over, what word would they first articulate as being a correct word? Well, and da is actually words. But let's continue. It happened as he had anticipated. The herdsman obeyed his orders for 2 years, and at the end of that time, so it took him 2 years to start talking and say something other than baby talk. On his one day opening the door of their room and going in, the children both ran up to him with outstretched arms and distinctly said, "Bekos." When this first happened, the herdsman took no notice, but afterwards, when he observed on coming often to see after them that the word was constant in their mouths, he informed his lord by his command brought to the children in their presence. Psammetichus then himself heard them say the word Bekos, upon which he proceeded to make inquiry what these people and who were called anything but Bekos. And upon he learned that Bekos was the Phrygian name for bread. In consideration of this circumstances, the Egyptians yielded their claims and admitted the greater antiquity of the Phrygians. Well, there's older things going on, definitely, like we look at Catalhoyuk and Göbekli Tepe that had gone on way before Sumeria. We know now, even though it got fought with my entire life, Sumeria predates Egypt, even in its pre-dynastic state, and then they themselves had that pre-dynastic state. That same Badarian situation they have over there with their cultures too. And then again, we have Proto-Indo-Europeans and things, and stuff are stretching back long into antiquity, back in the 20s of thousands. And I've showed you Solutreans, and have a video about to come out that shows you that connection back to the United States again. But we'll continue. Now here he's going to try to interject that a pale woman and a Negro Oh, no, no, no. That's a pale woman and a tan man. That's exactly where they're drawn. Everywhere, in fact. He just started off by showing Caucasians the same color as Egyptians. However, the assertion of the Phrygians were ethnically Etruscans because of the dating cannot be totally dismissed. A large part of Etruscan is over on the other side of Italy. What an idiot. Anyhow, a large part of the Etruscan population was part of the Sea People exodus that migrated into Anatolia about 1190 BC. Oh, so he's saying that's where they'd come from. I get it. While fleeing the white invasion in Italy, oh, so there was Negroes in Italy and they come running over here? That's what he's trying to interject, isn't it? That's disgusting again. He can't keep from trying to make everybody into a Negroid run out of places by white people. Yeah, although that what's going on now is niggers are in white people's lands, and then those white people lands are getting interjected by black people, aren't they? Yeah, it's kind of a different thing. You don't see white people running around in sub-Saharan Africa trying to take anything in any way, shape, or form. Oh wait, there is diamond mines and things like that. Yeah, it's actually what helps keep their country rich and going. Oh, there is South Africa, but that was all formed by Caucasians. Let's continue. Click here for account of sea people in Egypt and pictures of the sea people. Done that 4 times. But the argument concerning Phrygian Etruscan identity is somewhat diminished by the Etruscan tomb painting below. This is from the Francois tomb, Vuscoli in Italy, dated 200 BC. It is titled Sacrifice of the Trojan Captives. The scene depicts the sacrifice of Trojan captives for the burial ceremony of the Greek hero Patroclus. And so people that were supposed to keep with him in the afterlife, in a way. It seems unlikely that the Etruscans still in Italy would use their Trojan Etruscan brethren from Anatolia as sacrificial victims. However, the burial scene appears to be taken from Homer's Iliad, supposedly written 800 BC. Why would Etruscans paint tomb frescoes depicting scenes from a Greek poem? It may be that 200 BC the Etruscans, who are now under the hegemony of the Latin Romans, like their Latin overlords, they have accepted Greek mythology as their own, and thus the myth of Achilles and Patroclus. No, no, and see, that's not a myth. And then Achilles is a blonde guy. He's known as being Xanthos. And so that's a different thing. Here we see an angel, and she's extremely pale. Now, what he tried to say here a minute ago, that they're only painting, why would they paint a Greek poem on the wall? Is that a question that really is coming out of his mouth? Whenever all Greek that we've looked at and all these wall paintings all have mythology and poems and things onto them and things from that he would say, oh, why are I die, my dear? How about in Egypt? They do the exact same thing. I die, I did. Oh, I can see the Epic of Gilgamesh thing over here in a minute. I did, I die, I die. Oh, by the way, none of those are Negroids, and none of these are Negroids either. Here we have men in red ochre symbology. Oh my God, this guy's a little paler. So what he's saying is they killed themselves, or they killed some of their own people for going in the Trojan War and so on. That's what he's trying to say here. What's amazing is up here, didn't he just realize that they helped out the Trojans but weren't the Trojans? And when this says killing the Trojans, then that wouldn't be their own people. This would be the other people that they helped. Yeah, that's an important thing. And then, of course, he goes, duh. Another important kingdom of Anatolia was that of Urartu. Ooh, yeah. And people have said that instead of Abraham coming from Ur, maybe it was Urartu. That makes it not be in Sumeria. But I think we all realize that it must have had to do with that. And he came up to Syria. Then Jacob went from there, and he's the one that went and slept near Ziggurat, which is the stairway to heaven, and had the dream of blah, blah, blah. And then apparently an illiterate boy out of nowhere wrote Penuel and wrote out a statement. What's Penuel? Well, when we look in other parts of the Bible, that's the name of the ancient demon that taught writing to humans that was bad of the angels. Anyhow, that's just a totally separate subject here and would require a lot more going into. Was that of Urartu, which was in the eastern part of Anatolia. Urartu was considerable military power around 1000 BC. Actually, from even before that, they had it going on, but the only reason they kicked in at 1000 was that others were failing. However, the Urartians were later displaced in the area in the 6th century BC by the Armenians, not the modern Turkish Armenians, but the ancient Aryan Armenians. These Armenians called themselves Haik and may have been from the